Good morning. We are live here on the RSNA floor, and my name is Lawrence Tanenbaum, and I have the privilege of chatting for a bit with Dr. Nina Kottler. Nina, rather than have me do it and do an awkward job of it, why don't you tell us something about what you do, what your career arc is, and really in your area of AI expertise, we'll be spending most of our time teasing that out.
All right, sounds good. Well, thank you for having me. It's always fun to chat with you. I have a little bit of a atypical career path into both radiology and AI. I started off as a mathematician, got my graduate degree in applied mathematics, thought I was going to go into research or something, and ended up doing my master's in a project about the kidney. Loved the anatomy physiology, switched, went back to pre-med everything, and then ended up in radiology. It's just strange that around 2016, when AI came into radiology, that I got to get involved, having a math background, being really interested in technology. I sort of ended up combining the two things together, although I never thought I'd use my math background at all. With that said, I don't want anyone to think out there that you have to have a math background to get involved in radiology AI. You don't. In fact, most of what I use from my math background are just the fundamentals of scientific thought that we all learn in medical school. So the best way to learn about AI, which I learned on my own, is to just do it, get involved.
Yeah, I certainly would agree with that. I still can't figure out whether you multiply, divide, or use the parentheses when I see those math equations. But I agree. My tack on AI has always been on what are the practical aspects, how it makes a difference to my job along the way. But I've always been envious of the folks who have a deeper understanding as to how things work. To me, it's almost all black box. For you, I think you can make your way through some of that. All right, so tell us, you are famously with Rad Partners, right?
Yes.
Tell us how your journey with them has gone, how AI fits into that, and what you're excited about.
Yeah. I actually started with Radiology Partners very early on when it was two co-founders, two guys, Rich and Anthony. And when I joined it, we didn't really have any radiology work to do. And it was a very small startup, right? 3 people. So my job has evolved quite a bit over the years. And now that we have over 4,000 radiologists, they call me Rad1. So it's a bit of an acronym. I'm wearing it on my bracelet here. But my job has really changed a lot. I've done all kinds of things in the organization. Now what I'm doing is my absolute favorite. Number one, I love radiology. I love patient care, but I love how we could use technology to augment what we're doing, to improve the quality, improve the capacity of what we're doing, and to make ourselves better known back in the hospital. I think there's been a lot of years where we've sort of taken a step back and we haven't been as
Hey,
present.
can I pause you there and ask
Yeah.
you to expand on that piece? Because, that's always been the challenge for anyone in radiology, and it's gotten worse once we went to PACS, right? Once we left the reading room, once we went remote. So expand on that.
Yeah. In fact, we were talking a little bit about earlier about med school and residency. So when I was in med school, there was no PACS. So this was before you were using the alternators. And I wanted to be a radiologist because every rotation I was on, we went down into the reading room.
Yeah, that
It
was the
was
best part.
fantastic.
That
It
was
was
the best
amazing.
part. Yeah.
PACS helped a lot of things. I mean, it was really important at that time for us to be more efficient and more effective, because looking from one image to the next is really hard, but when you scroll, it's a lot easier. So I think it improved our quality. But what it did, unintended, was it made the reading room very quiet. Our history did not become a robust history anymore. It separated us from all of the other clinicians in the hospital.
So what has changed to make things better?
I think we need to go back to the place. What I call it is back to the future. But you can't go back to the past and say, everyone come back into the reading room. But what you can do is apply new technology that's going to change how we communicate with other physicians and how we do our job. If you were going to create your workflow in radiology right now from scratch, you would not create what you have today. Because what you have today is based on technology that is created in the 1990s. And back then, it was what we needed. Now, if you were going to create it, you would create something very different. You would create something cloud native, AI native even, that enabled your workflow in a way that was more effective. And you personally, as a radiologist, would not be the one that has to integrate the information from all of these disparate systems. It's very inefficient and ineffective. Because when we start changing what we're concentrating on, we change our focus, it's very hard to maintain quality. It's hard to maintain our efficiency and effectiveness. And we all get burnt out. Like there's so much of what we do that's administrative. We
Yeah,
need to get rid of
you know,
that.
and with that challenge, it's certainly very well put. On the other hand, it is the unique contribution of the radiologist to do that synthesis, right? To get all that information. But as you're saying, yeah, you know, we still have to do it, but it's always been very difficult because that information has been siloed,
Yes.
you know, and it doesn't, you know, what's the word, intercommunicate. There's a term that's not coming to me, but it's siloed. We can't get at it easily.
Right.
And I suspect that more and more AI tools, probably some of the ones that you're pioneering in your organization, are breaking down those silos and making them more available. I
Yeah.
mean, you mentioned we get bad histories, right? I think bad histories have been around forever. You know, you knew what to tell the radiologist to get that emergency ultrasound, whether it was true or not, right? So, and all the efforts to forcing doctors to write down the appropriate history really ultimately failed. So there is something at our fingertips. There is something right next to us, but hasn't been within arm's length. And that's the medical record. You know, talk about how we all should, or the way you are actually improving access to the medical record.
Yeah, I mean, what you talked about was even more global than the medical record. You talked about integration. And yes, we need information from all sources. We need information from the medical record. We get information from the tech. We get information from scanned in documents that are like, it's not digital anymore. It's just a scanned in piece of information. So how do we consolidate all of that together? Well, it's us as humans that have to do that. And that's really silly. It doesn't mean we don't need the information. We absolutely do.
I agree.
But we need something that helps us tell us what that information is so that it's digitized. And that's where AI comes in.
No, and in reality, every opportunity, every interaction with a human, well, though we are really, you know, special that we are, introduces the possibility for error, right? If a technologist records 5 centimeters, okay, I may read it as 5 millimeters, and then it becomes a crisis, right? So if you can automate what the technologist does, that you scan in, turn it into digital information that pre-populates the report, that better informs the radiologist, which is getting higher and higher in quality. And in radiology, I'm a big believer that we have to deliver value. If we stop delivering value, we get sidelined.
100%.
Okay, so tell us what you're doing in your organization to make that more mellifluous, more smooth,
Yeah.
less friction in the process.
Well, you gave one great example, which is taking ultrasound scanned in worksheets, which is unstructured information, and then making it structured by putting it digital into your report. That takes an AI system to do that, or optical character recognition, where you extract that information. That's one example. There's probably 400 that I can come up with of things like I should never open an exam that's incomplete, doesn't have all the images, doesn't have the reconstructions, doesn't have the sonographer worksheet, doesn't have something on the sonographer worksheet, right? Like all of those components.
I'm just going to
You're
pause you there.
laughing.
I'm going to pause you there, but I want you to continue. So remember where you were going,
Okay, all
right?
right.
You know, we talk about burnout in radiology. When you think about going through a day, reading 60, 70 cases a day, and you know that would be in the middle range between academia and a community practice. These serial micro infractions drive you absolutely nuts and contribute to burnout. Just think getting a case to load your pre-hanging protocols,
Yeah.
preset protocols in the packs properly. When that rare occasion comes when our current systems do this, you just get a jolt of joy,
Yeah.
right? You know, yeah, but all of these little microaggressions that drive us crazy just build up, and it could be missing series. It could be, as you said. So go ahead.
Okay. Well, all right, so I'm a mathematician. I'm going to bring us back to a graph. Have you ever seen the graph where you have 1% improvement every day for a year? That looks like this. It's a crazy exponential graph. And these little things, while individually, they may not contribute a huge amount of change to your day. When you start adding them up, they do. Now, with that, you need an infrastructure and operating system that enables you to plug them in. Like your phone, we all have phones. They're an operating system. You can plug in apps that allow you to do that. Even bigger though, there are some larger hanging fruits. Low hanging fruits, maybe not low hanging fruits, but like large hanging fruits, meaning I can do
Worth
certain
moving up on
things.
a stool to grab, in other
We're
words?
getting out to this doing. And these are things that enable us to really have a step change in our capacity generation, because it's a huge problem within the industry, right? We don't have enough radiologists. Our patient care is suffering. We're suffering. Our clients, our hospital clients are suffering, right? We need to solve this problem. And so there are bigger hanging fruits that we're going to call. And for us, we've seen two of them that we've created within our Mosaic clinical technologies. The first one is a language model or multiple language models that helps you generate a report based off what you say. So instead of using voice recognition, where you have to say every single component of what's going in that report, which means you talk a lot, you say periods, you say scratch that, next paragraph, you have to change what your focus from the images over to the report because you don't know what section you're in. That is going away. It's going to be replaced 100%. In the next couple of years, we've replaced it already from a lot of our RADs in our practice to this language model report generation. It's kind of more like you're seeing in the movies with Tony Stark talking to Jarvis. You're talking to a system like you and I talking to each other. I didn't say period or next paragraph. And it is a lot easier. You say less words because you just dictate the pathology and you could tell the system what you want it to do.
So in other words, you don't have to do the punctuation. It's a minor thing in my mind, but you're free dictating and it's filling out a structured report.
Yes. So you free dictate in whatever order you want. You can only say the positive findings, and then it fills out a fully structured report for you, generates the impression as well.
And this feels very natural to your readers.
It feels natural once you get rid of the idea that I have to do all the things I used to do in the past. If you try to recreate voice recognition, it doesn't work well. But so it's actually easier for people who've never done it before, because if you come into a system and you don't have those predefined notions of what it has to be, it's just like you and I talking to each other. So very natural.
So I love where you are right now, but certainly I think you're aware of where potentially you could go, right? And some of these vision language models will actually look at your exam and do some of that pre-population. Even though you're not doing it now necessarily, or haven't talked about it now, dream a little bit in that space.
Okay. So I'll tell you from just the reporting on its own, the amount of capacity or efficiency generation that we're seeing is about 18%. Pretty good just for that. But you're still, and it works for every single study, so that's good. But what you said is absolutely the future. What if instead of dictating all the positive findings, I didn't dictate any findings, because there was a vision language model that looked at the images and then generated the findings that went into your reporting solution that generated the structured report. Wouldn't that be great? That's exactly what you're saying. Yes, we have that deployed right now to over 250 radiologists in our practice. Now, anything that is vision language has to go through the FDA. So we are running this under an IRB, and we are going through the FDA. Anyone that's doing it will, but we'll start seeing more of these on the market, and I think in 2026.
So were you able to get your IRB to waive consent for this process? That's critically important.
It is critically important because it's very hard for us to get patient consent. But what we did do is we get radiologist consent. We need to educate them. So we do a training video, like, what is this about? When we do this for every AI we roll out, we don't roll out an AI without training our RADs.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. And they could officially consent just by opening the case like you do. By opening this case, you've consent to the use of these models.
We're a little more official. We have them sign a form very specifically.
Well, not for every case.
Not for, they have to sign a form saying, I'm going to use this. And it's not FDA approved, and then they get the training.
All right, so I love that number you threw out. Was it 26%?
18 for that.
18%.
But I didn't tell you what it was for the vision language models.
Okay, well, let's hold that for a second, because I'm going to say something, and then you're going to say, and guess what? There's more. Okay, there's more. So let's just say, you look at the MR scanners, which are, again, one of our more detailed reports and one of our more detailed burdens and a large part of our practices. Over the last decade, based on AI-based tools, our capacity has really gone up 30-40%, right?
The volume?
The volumes have gone up 30-40%. Great. I'm glad you said that, because it's not capacity, it's actually volumes.
Yeah.
So getting 18% more efficiency is essentially making 18% more radiologists more available, but that's not matching the full 40%. So tell me what else you have in your bag.
Yeah. Well, that's very true. So if you think about the trajectory of what's happening with volume versus capacity, I mean, we've been in radiology for a long time, and in the past, it's always been cyclic. It would go up, then it would go down, we'd manage. it's not cyclic anymore. It is literally
Continuously
a
rising.
slope that's
I
rising.
wasn't aware that it was cyclic. I thought there was a slow, steady rise.
Slow, but we had other things that helped us improve our efficiency, or we had more
Oh,
people.
so we had responses.
We had responses, and now we're ran out of responses. We need something different. So it's about a 10x difference in order of magnitude. It's about a 4% increase in volume every year. Capacity increase about 0.4%. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a 10x difference, order of magnitude. We're at a point where we can't manage it anymore. So we can't build capacity for what we have to manage today. We have to build capacity for what we have to manage tomorrow. So you asked me that question. What are you doing to manage for tomorrow? It was 18% for the reporting solution. It's already, and we just rolled this out right now for x-rays, about 92% of our x-rays, and we started now with head CTs. That has generated about a 28% capacity generation on average, with some rads 2 or 3x that.
Okay, what is the that? I think I may have missed what you added to get to the X-rays and the CT. What did you
This
add?
is the vision
The
language
vision language model.
So it looks at an x-ray, it looks at a head CT, it generates the positive findings, but not it. I don't know if most people know about the difference between the narrow AI we're using today and foundation models, because
Okay.
that's really important.
Okay, well, let's finish this little arc, and then I'll ask you to go back and take us back to the beginning and explain the difference.
Okay, so it will look at the images of your head CT, your x-ray. It will look at the prior study to compare it to, look at the prior report, ingest all of that, and create all of the positive findings. Positive findings like, there's a hemorrhage in a right frontal lobe with 2 millimeters of right to left midline shift associated with these findings. Like, that is different than a yes/no finding. So it gives you that full report.
No, I love that. And does it already start with the previous report said 2 millimeters of shift? Now it would then say now 3.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like you would dictate.
Yeah, that's great. Well, that really is wonderful. So, have there been any pitfalls there? And let me, before you answer, we all started early in the AI space. It was all supposed to be about efficiency. It's hard to monetize that back then. And it rarely was efficiency, right? It was extra fuss, right?
Yeah.
You are very sanguine about how positive this has been.
Yeah.
What's changed?
I would argue that back then it wasn't about efficiency in 2016 when it first came out. We didn't have as big of a problem back then as we do today. I would argue back then people were creating products to generate a return on investment because no one was paying for it. And most of that came down to quality, because efficiency didn't pay the bills. Quality doesn't really pay the bills on its own, but it paid the bills by enhancing detection. So in 2016, most of the things that came out, whether that was triage or a caddy, that was about enhancing detection. Now, if you look at today, it needs to be different. And I'll tell you, we're using more AI tools, these narrow AI tools, than probably anyone in the world in radiology. And the amount of capacity generation we have with these narrow AI tools that were directed at detection, it's about 1% across our practice. Like 1%, that's nothing. So you're right, it did not solve our problem. I don't think it was aimed to solve our problem. The new technology, which is around the more general tools, which are foundation models, that's making a very big difference, because number one, it could work on every single exam. And number two, it's doing far more for our workflow than we ever done before.
This is great. And I'm soaking all of this up. I came in a believer, and you've given me more concrete examples of that belief. But, my attitude about AI is a little bit more global, right? I feel it's less about these individual narrow applications, narrow causes, because you say you're using 40-point applications. The contracting on that alone at some point must have just been, formidable. To me, I use the Downton Abbey example. Downton Abbey, you never watched Downton Abbey?
No.
Well, Downton Abbey was set in the era before electricity, and in all of these great rooms, there were gas lamps on the wall, right? And then at some point, we hit the electricity era, and there were now electric lights on the wall, but they didn't say, oh, great, the room's lit. They said, oh, look, electricity. But very quickly, it transitions into the room's lit, right? They didn't care about what was behind it, whether it was AI with electricity, whether it was, whether it was diesel fuel. Now, what I see is that these AI tools, like the ones you're describing, are available throughout business enterprises, and probably of one of the greatest values is in the radiology enterprise, making those connections, creating that generative agentic model interface that things can do, based on these vision language models, these foundational models that are doing that. I'm sitting here with an expert. Take us into that era. Tell us what's different.
I do actually, I mean, it's a nice analogy because I do think these foundation models are kind of the electricity of radiology. They're going to be the foundation. I think in the not so far future, for us, we're already doing it, but for other people within the next, I would say, year or two, most people are not going to be dictating a lot of their studies. They're going to have them drafted. They're going to be using a reporting solution that will create a structured report, and they'll be overseeing them. It's a very different way of practicing, and I'll tell you, it's very satisfying. And that will allow us to move into a new era to provide more value. I mean, you talked about this in the very beginning. Radiology is nothing. I mean, no specialty is anything unless we provide value. So what's the value we can provide? With these new foundation models that will enable us to first catch up on the work, it will manage our burnout. It's also good to do other things for the quadruple aim that we've all been trying to do. We will move away from population health guidelines, which can be far more enabled with foundation models. We've got one now that just automatically puts those into our report when we dictate it. We don't have to say anything, we don't have to call it in, we just validate it. But
You're
we're gonna
talking
move,
about, you see something of this size, this is the appropriate follow-up. Yeah, I remember that
right?
being one of the hallmark introductions of your work to the industry, was basically putting that in the report, increasing consistency and standardization. Great work. Go ahead.
And that's really important. But now, instead of having it as a separate widget or having 1,000 widgets, like you were talking about earlier with all those lights in downtown Abbey, you have to integrate it into a solution that does it for you. So we've done that. It's now integrated into our reporting solution. But that's not the future, because population health is not the future. In fact, our referring clinicians are already practicing precision medicine, and we need to be practicing precision radiology to match that. So we are going to move from population health to precision medicine.
Okay, see, now you're getting me. I'm getting a little lost in some of these terms that you're using, because to me, population health is something that we in the outpatient space, I know that a lot of RAD Partners was inpatient, but you've got a substantial amount of outpatient focus. In the outpatient space, we're treating healthy patients. We're looking at chronic diseases and, screening for things like osteoporosis,
Yeah.
cardiac calcification, all of those things.
Yeah.
When you say population health is no longer important, but we're transitioning to precision, okay, help me understand so that I can explain to the next person how the transition from population health opportunities, lung screening, prostate screening, breast screening, and making that transition into precision medicine is paying dividends.
Sure. All right, so let's take the screening example. Patients come in for screening. That's a population health measure. We want patients to come in to do their screening. But do you treat them all the same, like an average patient? Or when you review them, do you treat them as individuals? Now, not treating like the patient experience, which is important, but the images. So now we have models, AI models, that will look at the breast image on a mammogram or a tomosynthesis study. And using that pixel information, it can short-term predict the risk of malignancy for that patient. That's going from like plugging stuff in family history for sort of a generic model for people to something that is more specific based on their actual imaging. That's number one, like one way.
Okay, so what you've seemed to highlight there is the fact that our AI algorithms are really good at pattern recognition and will identify important things, cancers, before, or maybe years before we can. And there's examples of this in a lot of areas. Certainly in the breast, a recent paper came out of my old organization that showed that. Is that what you mean? That you know that this,
Somewhat.
you can assess this patient's risk? So I'm seeing this too simply. Help me get a better feel for it.
There is far more information within the pixels of the images than we're consuming as radiologists.
Okay.
There is,
You're talking to Fred Flintstone here. Help me understand.
all right, you look at a breast mammogram, or what's your subspecialty?
Well, I've read mammograms in my life. You
All
can
right, there
stay
we go.
there.
All right, so we'll stay in breast imaging. You're looking at a breast tomosynthesis study and you're interpreting it. You're just looking for, architectural distortion, you're looking for masses, you're looking for calcifications, you're looking for asymmetries. Like there's specific things that we were trained on that our visual fields can attain that you're looking for. But there's thousands of pieces of information that are built into the pixels that we haven't yet identified. And there are things that the AI is identifying that we're just not seeing yet. We're going to start moving into an era where the AI is telling us stuff. So prediction is one of them. I cannot look at a mammogram. Well, first of all, I'm an emergency imager. So if I said anything wrong about
I'm a neuroradiologist, so we're both cheating a little bit. Go ahead.
But I can't look at a mammogram and say, you're at a higher risk for developing breast cancer in the next few years than someone else. I can't do that. But an AI system is starting to be able to do that. There's already one that's FDA cleared to do it. There's going to be more that will come out. We'll start seeing it in other areas outside of breast imaging. Prediction medicine is fantastic because that's when we can start getting into prevention. Like as patients, it's really hard to get patients to change their lifestyle. If we tell them they have a disease, it's already too late. We need them to change their lifestyle before. How do you do that? You need to integrate them in care. Well, if you can show them some information, provide them information that helps them understand what their trajectory is, maybe we could get them to alter their lifestyle a little bit for that understanding. Just be more involved in their own personal care.
Well, I have to say that I'm very sad because I think we've run out of time, and I could talk to you for hours and continue to soak this up and learn. Certainly, Radiology Partners is very lucky to have you at the head of this endeavor, and I think all of us in radiology are very lucky to have you sort of showing us the way. Thank you very much for spending time with us today.
Thanks for having me, Larry.